by for the Brewery Underground podcast.
In Nashville's heart will rise, cracked and bruised when we've disguised. Steve and Scott, they lead the way. Brewery Underground, night and day. Raise your glass, let's ignite. In this city, we unite. Raise your glass, let's ignite. In this city.
Can you give a ballpark estimate from when you started in 95 to now, how many different beers have you brewed?
Oh God.
I mean, I'm not asking like the exact number, but just like a ballpark.
We have, like, right now we have 20 taps in our tasting room,
Okay.
and they're always full, and we have a new beer in our tasting room, not necessarily a distributed beer, every Friday. So, but you know, for those first 10 years, it was really only 4 beers. I mean,
Okay.
we have occasional one-off batches, and we do special beers for certain events. But God, in the last 15, 20 years, I can't even. So many different kinds of beer, and we have a 3.5 barrel system as a R&D or a pilot system, and then we have our big system, and so we're always messing around on that thing. And a lot of those beers are just in our tasting room. But man, I mean, my guess is maybe not into the thousands, but hundreds and hundreds for sure.
It's a lot. Still a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
lot of history, my friend. That's a
Yeah.
lot of history.
There's a beer on your tap list right now, and the reason it stood out to me is because of the ABV, and it's called a West Easy Light Lager, and it's 3.8%. Obviously, it's in the description. It's a light lager. Why are those like low ABV and maybe even mid strength? Maybe it's in that range too. Why are those important? I know we talked about lagers in general, but why are those low ABVs important to people? And why have one on draft?
Yeah, this is definitely an experiment for us. I've always thought we were really good at brewing clean, light lagers. Like we started brewing a Mexican style lager in 1999, and it's our best selling beer. And it's won a bunch of awards, and it's something I'm super proud of. And we've always been, I think our lab and our quality control is a big part of that. Because obviously it's hard to make a beer like that. I mean, you can't mask anything, and it's got to be. And then once you take it to a level where you've got a really low ABV, you don't have anything helping you out on the shelf at all, as far
Right.
as ability goes. But anyways, it's I think a lot of it is. Ours is interesting because we're branding it a bit different than the rest of our lineup. It doesn't look anything like our regular Ska beers. The price point's also quite a bit lower. It doesn't cost nearly as much to make, and so we're almost looking at it like it might not even really. Sure, it's made by a craft brewery, but I don't know if it even really, depending on how you're defining it, if that's where it fits. So we're positioning it to sit on the shelves with Coors, Bud, Miller. But we'll see how that goes. That's an experiment. But back to just low ABV and mid-strength beers, I love to see the mid-strength beers that are still a particular style, not just a light lager, but like IPAs or whatever. Even though we kind of went through a phase of session, it's a little bit different now. Maybe it's a little bit more accepted, but it's interesting because I think what we're seeing is a reaction to Gen Z not drinking as much. People our age, a lot of my friends that probably kept us in business all these years, don't drink half the amount of beer they used to. And then there's trends like zebra striping. Are you guys familiar with zebra striping, where you drink an alcoholic beer and then you drink a non-alcoholic beer and then you drink you alternate? Yeah.
Okay.
Where's that becoming a trend at?
I think it's just a thing. I mean, I don't know, but it's kind of people trying not to get hungover, but still want to go out or still want to have some beers. And
Okay.
So older people, and then I think younger people. Millennials, I think, are pretty solid consumers, but they're very, they have a lot of information coming at them digitally about health, and so it's easy to spin somebody's outtake on beer or whatever. And I think lower calories, less gluten, less alcohol, all of those things, less carbs. Those things are all, there's definitely segments among beer drinkers and craft beer drinkers that are appreciating beers that take that into account more so than they ever have. And that's where you're seeing a lot of the growth right now. I just was reading an article that the BA put out today that mentions Founders and Harpoon and their lower ABV, lighter beers that they're coming out with. It's a good article. It's worth looking into.
Yeah.
Just at the Brewers Association. But for us, it's interesting. We had a lighter, lower ABV beer called Ska Lager that we had out for a couple years. We discontinued it last year. And our employees that drink a lot of beer, especially the brewers, they'll taste and drink all of our higher ABV beers. But when they're just sitting there in the tasting room, putting one down after another, that's what they were drinking. And it's just because they're going to get up and come to work at 4:30 in the morning or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they're younger, and it's like they could put away quite a few more beers and still function the next day than I can. So for me, it's difficult because it's not my kind of beer. I still like hoppier, little bigger beers and darker beers. I don't like light beers that don't taste like a lot, even though I appreciate the difficulty in brewing them. But it's something that's impossible to ignore when you're a brewery, I think, our size. It's happening. Kind of branding the West's Easy Light different than all the Ska stuff it's a little bit of an experiment as sort of a sub or off brand that I don't know how it's going to go. And we're not releasing it market wide. We're just releasing it in the southern part of Colorado out of the gates to kind of just see what happens. But already our crew, our actual employees are drinking a ton of it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was going to be a question of mine. Could you have even predicted 5 or 10 years ago that, at your place, non-alcoholic and what you're doing also some of the CBD sparkling seltzers. Could you have predicted 5 or 10 years ago that, hey, this is what's going to be a trend in 2026?
It's interesting because one thing we do have is we have a non-alcoholic, just flavored sparkling water called Skagwa. We've been making that for years and years, and that actually stemmed from one of my partners getting a DUI when we were much younger, and we drank a lot of beer while we were working when we were younger. Probably not the best idea, but we didn't know any better, nor did we care. And so he got a DUI, and he couldn't drink anymore, but he wanted a bubbly beverage in his hand. This is before LaCroix, we didn't even know about that. And so we started just carbonating water and then adding a little cranberry or a little lime. And we always had it on tap in the back so we could have something to drink other than beer for years. And then people started coming, and we had it for free in our tasting room. You could just go fill your own glass up with a tap just on the wall in the tasting room, any customer. And people started coming in and filling up jugs full of it, and jugs and jugs and jugs full of it. And we should start canning and selling that stuff. And so that's how that happened. But then we also got into CBD, and we've recently gotten into the THC game, very low dose THC sparkling beverages. And it's just for an alternative, and none of us are into non-alcoholic beer here. We appreciate it. We do sell it here, but it's not our beer.
It's not for you, right?
Offering. Yeah. And so it's kind of the stuff that we can sort of appreciate, like these THC drinks that we make. It's only 1.5 milligrams of THC in a 12-ounce can. It's called Ska Low Dose. And those I'm having a good time with. It's fun to have one of those instead of a beer. Um, Nothing higher than that as far as milligrams of THC, but that's really been pretty enjoyable for me. Once again, non-alcoholic beer. I can't see a day when that's something we do, but back to your original point, no, 5 years ago, it was a conversation we probably had. 10 years ago, definitely not.
Right.
Um, but it's now, and actually we were just looking at the numbers today. Um, our beer numbers in our own tasting room aren't up, but our numbers on all of our non-alcoholic beverages are up in the tasting room. So it's interesting, and I said it again. I said it to our whole team today. I believe in beer. There's more people coming. We have a lot of tourists that come here. It's Durango's a big tourism area, and it's very seasonal. So we kind of have to have a lot of offerings, at least because we're a full restaurant now at our world headquarters, or that's what we always refer to it as. But
Yeah.
we have it not necessarily for distribution or a real true revenue generator outside of Durango, but just to offer some diversity for those types of customers here at our brewery.
What that tells me, at least in my mind, is you're going to get the people that are going to go to the brewery anyway. Like you've got a group of people, right? And then somebody in there doesn't want to drink or is the designated driver or doesn't want beer, but you've got an option for them too. So you get your beer drinkers in there, and then you got the other people that are going to come that might not have come in otherwise because you didn't have something for them, whether non-alcoholic or THC or something. So the spike in that kind of tells me you're getting those people too, obviously, right? Those groups that are coming in.
Yeah, and that's our intent, for sure here. And it's like, whether it's I think we try to stay pretty true to where our soul is as far as to what we actually make and brew, but like non-alcoholic beer, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus here, but I still haven't tasted one that tastes as good as the version of it with alcohol in it when brewed well.
Imagine
And,
that.
so I don't get the point, but it's kind of like a lot of people do because it's close enough, I guess.
Right.
And,
Well,
Saying,
you
I don't like it, but I
mentioned-
understand.
Yeah.
and I appreciate it. And so you're right, though. I think, we want to offer something to everybody. If they've got a friend, I think I always look at it like hopefully the driving decision maker in the group is probably the person that wanted to have some of our beers, but then can we accommodate all their friends? That's what I hope we can do.
Yeah. You had mentioned earlier that Mexican lagers was one of your first ones that you started brewing, and it's something that Scott and I, when we go out, we hit breweries, we've noticed probably over like the last 2 years or so that every brewery now, especially this time of the year, they have a Mexican lager. Do you feel like you were a little bit ahead of the curve on that one way back in the day?
I feel like I didn't see another one from a craft brewery for at least a decade after we started brewing this. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we started brewing it in 1999, and it was, to be honest with you, we were closet Pacifico drinkers. We used to, I mean, we would go to festivals and we wouldn't sit there and drink all the craft beers. We'd go back to the truck or the car and drink a Pacifico and then go back out or pour it into our glass. And then finally and then that's what we would drink in the summer in Durango. It gets pretty hot here, and craft beers were not really light at the time. Lot of flavor, not the cleanest, lightest beers coming out of craft breweries in the mid to late 90s. Finally, we were just like, why don't we just try to brew one of these ourselves? And so we got a yeast strain from Mexico City, and we put a little dextrose in there and made a lighter beer, and it stuck for us. I mean, I remember going through the labeling issues that the TTB didn't know what to do because we just called it Mexican lager, but it wasn't made in Mexico. And at that time you weren't getting your labels approved online. you had to do it through snail mail. So we'd get a letter back saying, you didn't make this in Mexico. It's not a Mexican lager. So then it ended up being a hyphenated Mexican style lager. And it was all this rigmarole to finally get it to where we could put it in a bottle. And at the time we were all bottles. We weren't cans yet, but yeah. And then I really feel like it wasn't till, I mean, a decade later would have been 2009. So, I mean, still that's 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
It-
it's funny because Scott and I will go out. He could talk about this, but we go out now, especially this time of the year. We're like, okay, they got the Mexican lager. We got to try it, right? I mean,
Jeez,
we do that a
we went on
lot.
we went on a trip last year and we went to eight breweries in a row had a Mexican lager and we got
No
one from
kidding,
each one
huh?
of them. It was like, yes, this was awesome.
But it
Yeah,
wasn't that
that's
way
amazing.
years ago. Now everybody has a Mexican lager, and it's the same thing that everybody keeps saying. You can't hide behind them. I mean, there's a reason why they're there, and if they're not going to be good, man, it's not going to reflect well on you.
No. Yeah, I remember like when we first made I remember bringing it to a couple of specific festivals and we just embraced throwing a lime into it. Like we were always just trying to be irreverent all the time, like just do whatever the fuck we want. And regardless of what anybody else is doing. So we would show up at festivals, in 1999, 2000. And that was when everybody was anti-fruit in beer. And we'd show up with this light beer and a big old bowl of cut up limes. And brewers would come like to taste it. And no way would they put a lime in it. And we were just doing it just to kind of spite everybody. And every year we sold more and more and more. And then it became, and we were only brewing it in the summer. It was seasonal for us until just a couple of years ago. And it started to almost eclipse modus operandi when it was only available for 4 months of the year. So it was, in 4 months, we were selling as much of it as we were selling our main flagship throughout the whole entire year.
Wow. Yeah.
And so we switched and we started selling it year round. It's definitely our best selling beer that we have out there. And, and it's for us, it's great. It's got good placements in like the grocery stores and in Durango where we live, it just means summer here for everybody. That's what I miss about we used to have a kickoff party when we would release it every summer. And it was kind of like the unofficial start to summer. And now that we have it year round, we still have a party, but it's not really the Mexican lager party anymore. It's just a summer kickoff party, but
Right.
it's
Because you could buy it yesterday at the same also,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, it's always been a fun beer for us. And I kind of love telling the story, and I'm glad to see more. And it's interesting because they don't all taste like ours. We should just always put this in the international Pilsner category because there wasn't anything any better for it. We didn't brew it for a category, but we'd like to enter it. It's done well. And now it's like when you are really tasting some of those older Mexican lagers that are truly derived from like German Viennas and whatever. And, that are, I don't know that ours is the closest representation of some of those beers that I've tasted, because I've tasted some that are really, really close and really, really delicious. I think ours is a little bit different. I love what it is, but it's really weird when you have a beer that light, how much variance is there from brewery to brewery. And it turns out there's actually quite a bit, and
Yeah.
I appreciate it. It's a hard beer to make. And so I like to drink them when I go to other breweries as well. But boy, when you get one that's not clean, it's Pam.
And you're right, that 8 breweries in a row I was talking about, they were different from brewery to brewery, and none of them were bad. But they did
No.
vary, and it was like, how could it be different? That much difference between them, but they were all fantastic, and maybe some had some more corn notes or whatever it was, but they were all good. But they were all different.
Yeah.
It's pretty
It's
remarkable.
crazy. We didn't have any kind of clone recipe. We just made it up when we started. We just had the yeast strain. And that's what we've stuck with all these years. So if you're really trying to replicate Pacifico or whatever it might be, ours probably isn't the closest representation out there. In fact, I know it's not, So
Hey, speaking of lagers, you do a German style lager, Oktoberfest, and we're not going to be that far off from Oktoberfest season. Can you talk about that?
yeah, that was another one that another one I'm really proud of. I think it's because it's so seasonal, it's so limited. That's probably my favorite beer that we make. Um, and I think we originally came out with one. We brewed one years and years ago, and it did okay. And then and there were a lot of breweries making an Oktoberfest long a long time ago. And then there was this big lull where it just kind of stopped happening, and I didn't see as many available on the shelves here in Colorado as I used to, but always loved the style. And so we just decided, let's just go all in, get all of our distributors on board, get all pre-orders for this beer. This was 2017 or 18, I think. And just make an Oktoberfest, get the can. It's always this is kind of an interesting thing, but there's a minimum quantity order if you get a true digitally printed can from, the big can manufacturers like Ball. And if you're not going to sell that minimum quantity, then you pretty much are labeling your cans. And we decided to go for it with a cool matte finish, use this old label from the first time we made one years and years earlier, probably 2 decades earlier, and reinvent the beer, totally new recipe. And man, we won multiple gold medals. We won Brussels won a gold. We won gold at GABF that year, and we were so proud of it. And it's I don't know, it's a beer that our whole team, because we're already talking about brewing it, even though it's only April.
Yeah.
We only brew a couple batches, if even that. And it's limited, it's just get it out and it's done. And you got to time it right. But the longer it can lager, for the most part, the better. And so it's, yeah, we're already talking about fitting it into the production schedule.
Yeah.
And, but man, it's like when we come out with that beer, it's not unlike, it's a similar beer to, we've also done a Mexican lager dark that we kind of discontinued, but we might do again this fall. They're very similar recipes, actually. It's all German roots, and but it's those beers that are kind of clean lagers, but with a little color and a little bit of a malt backbone. I think brewers in general eat it up. Not just us, but those styles. Yeah, I think they're I think those are the types of beers that brewers really, really appreciate when it's really well made. It's a beer I'm really proud of. And I once again, that's a big part of when fall rolls around. Everyone can't wait to be drinking that again here at the brewery. Fun beer.
When do you try to drop yours? And do you take into consideration, a lot of breweries drop in stuff early, or do you kind of hold back a little bit, or when do you drop yours?
By the
Yeah,
way, can I interrupt for a second? This
Yeah,
has become a big thing with Scott and I, the conversation about Oktoberfest, because every year we text group of friends going, "You see Oktoberfest yet? You see it?" It gets earlier and earlier every year.
What's the stuff at the grocery store?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I don't think a lot of people really realize this, but it's a difficult puzzle. You don't want to come in later than a lot of other breweries because people just go for it when they first see it. And it's only going to be a one-time purchase for a lot of people. So you kind of got to be at the forefront. At the same time, Oktoberfest, as we know, actually it takes place in September. So you don't want to come out with it so early that you don't have any around when it's truly Oktoberfest season. And then you got to take into account how long it takes to get to your distributors. and how long it takes for your distributors to get it to the retailers. So it's a puzzle. And then if you have any still left at the end of September, when you hit October, you'll have some trickling sales. Come the end of October, though, you can't sell it anymore. So you got to run out before that. So we usually try to get it out. Every year, it seems like it's a couple days earlier, I think towards the end of July, sometime in July is when it'll probably get out there. And that gives it, the whatever's left of July and then all of August before it's truly Oktoberfest season. So it depends on how much we make. And, that was always a complaint of mine too. Like, I'm not drinking that stuff in July. It's made for July. There's a reason it's not out in July.
Right. And I always blame, with good or bad, and I always joke when I say blame, but it's Sam Adams' fault, right? It's Sam Adams did this thing. They did it. Good or bad, they did it. This stuff starts showing up in mid-June.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you're fucked.
I'm exaggerating.
You kind of got to do that.
Yes.
Are there any? Yeah. And are there any Oktoberfest events that either at the brewery or around Colorado that you all are involved in around Oktoberfest season?
Yeah, there's some small stuff around the Durango area. I don't think we do different things like with certain retailers. But we're not in any big like Oktoberfest festivals. I really want to throw one ourselves in Durango where we have different versions of German beers and like people have big tents and we get the mayor to come, tap a barrel. And it's always been kind of a dream of mine to create something a little more authentic, but Durango style, and invite all our friends that make well-made German style lagers and particularly Oktoberfest. But it's there's nothing huge, just some small things, but there's room for it. It would be great. I think it'd be a lot of fun. We do try to get a polka band, so come play at the brewery.
Awesome.
It's Steve. We love that time of year. Just the beer, the transitioning. It's just maybe the weather's changing a little bit. It's just that whole feeling of fall is great, and those beers come out, and you get a polka band going on, and you're just in the mood.
Well, I always say for beer drinkers, it's like Christmas, right? It's the most wonderful time of the year, and it's kind of like between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that's sort of the traditional Oktoberfest season lasts about that long too, and then boom, it's here, and then all right, bye-bye, and as you said, I mean, if you're going,
maybe that's it. Maybe it's just because it's so fleeting that it's so great.
I mean, as much as I would love to sit there and drink a lot of Oktoberfest, and I do, if I'm going into a brewery, unless it's a brewery that's serving Oktoberfest all year long, if I'm going into a brewery and it's, mid-November, I'm going, oh, I don't know. Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, it's interesting. And we usually, because we fill our pipeline with it, and then we usually have another batch going, and then that's what's going to possibly go on through October. And so the beer is still plenty fresh into the next year. But regardless of what the best buy date on the can is, the consumer is just seeing Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
And that just means, and it's funny because, we take it for granted because we live it, but most people think Oktoberfest means October and, just the general person out there. So, for it's still good. Like October still works. Obviously, if you're a beer person, you're thinking September, but the beer still tastes great in February,
Yeah.
But you can't sell it after October at all.
Well, Steve and I live in a part of the country where it stays hot for late into the season. So when I drink Oktoberfest through October, even some in November, we don't care because it's still not cold yet. Hell, it's been hot for 7 months.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't even think about that. That's funny.
We're not ready for stout season yet when November rolls around.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is almost the
that's
end of my stout season.
that's definitely a thing in Colorado, like the seasonality of the beer styles and what consumer preferences, including my own. I definitely the fall turns browner beers, the winter turns blacker beers.
Yep. Yep.
There's no doubt about
Totally.
it,
Yep.
and we see it in the tasting room. It's real.
When we had Emily on, we asked her, we said, if a brewery did 3 marketing things well, what would they be? And one of the things she said was, and I'm quoting, perfect your website and accept that it's never really finished. Your website is perfected.
It's fun. It's fun.
It is fun, and I guarantee it's continually updated because it's so cool. It's comic book style, comic book theme kind of thing. Can you describe it? It's very interactive. I was on it today and I kept jumping around like, this is a lot of fun.
I appreciate that. A lot of the thanks for that goes out to some friends from a marketing agency that they were dear friends before I knew there was a marketing agency involved, but out in Philadelphia called Red Tedimer. And they helped us create that website and the style of it back when we first built our world headquarters here in 2008. And then in-house, our graphics person, Kara, she's maintained it ever since. So it's not easy to keep a website that's foundation is that old. It's very difficult to keep updated. But I have a hard time letting go of the style of our website. I don't want it to change.
It's got a lot of that black and white you were talking about and you showed on that record
Yeah.
earlier. It's got a lot of that around the border and stuff. I love it.
It's funny. It's a lot of like the verbiage and the text, that we wrote however long ago. It's kind of fun. Like just the story stuff is all pretty fun.
The story's great. There's something on there. It's called, bear with me, I got it here. The Legion of Ska. And it's got a total comic book vibe. It's like you've got heroes and you've got villains, and the heroes are you guys, and the villains, I guess, is kind of like corporate America kind of thing.
Yeah. So here's the actual comic book.
Oh, look at that.
Wow.
That's the True Blonde character.
And there's True Blonde, yes.
Yeah, and Pinstripe, he's the skeleton that's in the pinstripe suit. And he is the CEO of the Rotgutson International Beverage Corporation. which at the time was Budweiser.
Okay.
And, yeah, and so the whole thing takes place, and the showdown at the end of the comic book is in the 10-pin bowling alley. And all of our friends that help us defeat Pinstripe and his thugs, that is the Legion of Ska. And it's pretty funny. Like, you could kind of see, here's like the whole fight scene in the bowling alley.
Yes.
In fact, right
I
here.
love that it's a whole thing.
Yeah,
Full page motherfucking fight scene.
It's like an old Batman comic book.
It kind of
Yeah.
is just like pow, crunch,
Totally.
Kabam!
It's
Kabam.
so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of inside jokes in this place. There's inside jokes on our labels within our comic book, and I mean, even like our employee handbook has inside jokes and stuff in it. We kind of touched on it earlier, but we try to keep that flowing through a lot of the stuff we do. And so the website's like, it's just the perfect medium for that, to kind of tie it all together and give people a taste of it. And you can kind of tell, there's some fun going on, and there's a lot of story here and there, and it's all pretty much completely embellished, but there's little bits and pieces of truth here and there.
Sure, there's a point to some of it, right? There's really a point here. If you click on each individual character, like if you click on True Blonde, it jumps to that person, then she says something, right? There's a statement or something, and each of you have that. Even the villains have something if you click on them. I eat the little guy for breakfast kind of thing. I, I think it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Awesome. I appreciate that. That's good to hear.
Dave,
really
I
is.
swear, man, what's really great about you is that you were like what, your late teens when you're going through the brewing process and starting Scots and now. And I could see you now to then, and you haven't really changed. You still
That's
have
kind of
that.
the point I was trying to make her. I don't feel like
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah, I could tell that. I mean, we have felt you through this entire podcast episode. I mean, from the evolution of everything that's happened to you, you haven't changed at all. It's great.
Amazing. That's funny to hear.
What PJ O'Thugly and Knuckles? Those are
Two key thugs. Two key thugs of the pinstripes.
You gotta see these. You gotta go to the page. You gotta see. It's hilarious. It's great. You can't even describe it. You got to look at it and see. It's
SkaBrewing.com is the website.
It is. And not only that, there's a whole lot of good stuff on the story so far is great. You even touched on it. You said something about Dave and Bill learned that while they loved gulping down good beer, they weren't yet old enough to buy it. You touched on that earlier in the episode. Yeah, it's absolutely. It's I love this. There's a lot of good information on here, like real information. There's a lot of fun stuff on here too. Go check out the website. It's great. Something else I want to touch on before we don't want to keep you forever. We got a million other things, but sustainability. You guys are really into sustainability. You've got a really nice page on your website about it. You guys, there's something really cool about it. You can collars. You went from plastic to paperboard. Was cool. You're composting. You're reducing waste. But one of my favorite things, I've never seen this before, is you use recycled jeans in the walls for insulation. Talk about that. Are they literally just wadding up jeans up there? Are they ground down? How does that work?
Yeah, when we built the brewery that we're currently in 2008, there were no LEED certified buildings in Durango at the time, and we wanted to be the first LEED certified building. And so one of the, we did a lot of the stuff, but unfortunate part when you're a small business owner trying to grow, to become LEED certified, you have to pay a commissioning agent to basically just stand there that doesn't live here, so you're paying for his hotel and his food, and he's just signing off saying, yeah, you did the things you said you were going to do. Very expensive. And we were like, we're not doing that, so we didn't keep that guy. We still went forward with most of the things we wanted to do to become LEED certified. We didn't get the certification though. But one of the things we did amongst quite a few different things was, and this was just cool because I hadn't even heard of this before, but the R factor, how insulating insulation can be in a wall. I don't know a lot about that, but recycled denim, blue jeans, has a great R factor, like as good as fiberglass, if not better, I think. And so all of our walls are insulated with recycled denim, which was interesting because when we actually got it, and it clear as day was just recycled denim, and I think it was a mix of scraps from jeans being made and also jeans that were recycled. So yeah, that's what all of our walls are insulated with. If they're
on
not
on my bingo card tonight, I would have not ever have guessed that denim would be good insulation.
Yeah. And I don't, I'm glad you guys just brought that up because it's one of those things I've probably taken for granted and haven't thought about in a little while. But I wonder like how far, because that was in 2008. So how far advanced that has come and what other materials they might be using now. And if denim is still a good, has that insulating factor and that R factor that and if there's better products now, if we were ever to build something else.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it was, it's cool. Like if you cut right into my office wall right here, jeans would fall out.
She's just falling out.
And there's some Levi's.
Maybe a few coins might come along with it.
Yeah. Who knows what else will fall out, but I guarantee some jeans.
Yes.
Look, there's some brewery recipes in the back pocket.
Recipes. Couple of grocery lists.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I got a couple fun things I want to end on if you got a couple extra minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. What's the most punk rock thing that's ever happened in the brewery?
Oh God.
He's combing through the stories right now.
Yeah, there's because that can mean, that's pretty subjective. I can think of I can think about a time when we had a band that showed up kind of unannounced. They were a ska band called Warsaw. This is in our old brewery, our original brewery. The tasting room was very small. It was actually an old lab that coincidentally worked out great for us. But those guys kind of showed up one day unannounced. They were an Arizona ska band and they toured a lot in the Southwest. And they ended up playing in the tasting room, which wasn't, it's the size of my office, our old tasting room. And they had a lot of people. And they weren't playing their regular instruments. They were playing brewery stuff. They were all really good. They could all play a lot of different instruments. They're all multi-talented. And I was singing, and this is at like 2:00 in the morning. A couple good stories like that, but this one's a good one. And it was like, yeah. And I there's a picture that sometimes I see on the internet when they're talking about this band that's in our tasting room that same night. So like particularly when it's this one guy's birthday, I see it pop up on some ska websites, but there was probably 10 people playing instruments really well and way past when we were legally allowed to be doing that. And it was packed and but people were playing pots and pans and some instruments. And I remember a recorder. And it was like, and I remember like handprints the next day on the walls, and people like were climbing. Everyone was on top of the bar, and it was one of the funnest nights of my life. Took some time to get over in the next few days, but it wasn't legal. Nobody got hurt, so I think that's a big thing in punk rock. You're always trying to take care of everybody as crazy as you get, and it was wild. It was completely wild, but nobody got hurt. We had a great time, and everybody lived to at least do it to some extent another day. And that was good because that was another thing I was thinking about, some of the old pictures. But we had a few questionable things as far as the legality of what we were doing in not only at our own place but around town way back in the day. And then so I think there's some things like that, where you're just pushing the limits of everything. And
well, the good news is the statute of limitations have run out on that.
Yeah, you hope.
I'm not too afraid to talk about it.
We won't tell anybody.
Well, that's definitely punk rock. That is definitely punk rock. That certainly fit the bill. If you had a walk-up song, or if Ska Brewing had a walk-up song, what would it be?
Not Jamie's on a vacation far away. No, I'm just thinking the Rocky. But no, I don't know. That's a great question. God, I've never thought about that, which is amazing that nobody's ever asked me that before.
You know what that means then, Dave? We're going to have to bring you back on again, and you have a lot of time to think about it.
Well, if he throws one out here, we're going to use it as one of the posts.
I know. I'm trying to think like of all the okay. Yeah. I think the toasters, we actually used to use this on that website. I don't think it's on there anymore, but the toasters, and this is a fun story too. They're celebrating, I think, their 45th year, as they were original New York ska, so part of that third wave of ska I was talking about. Well-known ska band, and they've invited me to go on tour with them at this fall in Poland and Germany. Neither of which country I've ever been to, but they have a song called "Don't Let the Bastards Grind You Down," and I think that, and there's no doubt about it. That's the walk-up song. Don't
All
let
right.
the bastards grind you
That's
down
awesome.
by the
Okay,
Toast.
good.
Yeah, you
We will
look
hear
that one up.
that.
Great song.
I'm going to end on this. What's one thing people have to experience to truly understand Ska Brewing?
I think actually being at our anniversary party in the fall, it's a good. You get to taste all the beers. You get to feel the vibe of the brewery and all the people that work here and the people that really enjoy the beer and the music. It's kind of a scene. It's usually mostly ska. It's a little faster and harder and some more punk rock this year. With the bands that we've got lined up, it's September 12th. It's not quite sold out yet, but it always does sell out. But that party is really indicative of the whole character and the vibe of who we are and the beers we make and the people we are and the people that work here. And it's a really good way to get a taste of what this place has been all about for 31 years.
Awesome. Awesome. That's awesome. Steve, you got anything else for Dave?
It can't get anything better than that.
I
That's-
know. What a
I
what a
mean, I
great
don't
way
have
to go.
anything. I have so many other questions, but
I
you know
know.
what? We like to save questions for another episode. And you know what? Now we're going to twist your arm and say, will you come back again?
I'd love to come back.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
you
were,
guys are a lot of fun.
you were great,
Yeah,
man.
it
You
was
were great.
great too because you did a good amount of research for being in a place that can't get our beer on a regular basis. You know, I appreciate that. So I appreciate you guys for really digging into things before we ever even got started.
Absolutely.
I have
We
loved
tried to
every
do a
minute.
little digging.
I've loved every minute of this episode, man. This has been fantastic.
That's
Great,
awesome. Is
great.
there anything you want to end on? Anything we didn't touch on? You wanna put out there?
No, I mean, go Avalanche. We talked about that. No, it would be great to see you guys. You should maybe see if you can make your way out here for one of our anniversary parties. Even
Be
even
fun.
We're
this
gonna
year.
have to do that. I was telling him, like, I go to GABF a lot, but I know it's almost another world getting to where you guys are. So
Yeah.
we may have to plan a little something maybe one of these days and kind of do both. Possibly.
It'd
Maybe
be
next
fun.
time I'm the one time I was in Nashville, I went down early. I ran the rock and roll marathon like it was like the day before the craft brewers conference started, and
Okay.
I swore I would be back to Nashville. So if I'm getting back there to do, whether it's to run or for some other reason, I'll look you guys up and definitely see if we can go out and have a couple beers.
We will show you a good time. Promise.
Awesome. I
We'll
need a
find
local
time.
to show me around.
Yes.
We'll
Yeah.
find
You want
time for
that.
you. We'll find a location to record too. That would be an absolute blast.
Yeah, that'd be great. Cool.
Well, Dave, thanks for joining us. This was a freaking blast.
It was.
Awesome. I had a lot of fun. Thank you guys.
Ska Brewing, West Coast IPA.
Cheers.
Cheers, you guys.
Cheers. Thank you. Brewery Underground
All right.
Podcast.
Cheers.